Hey, what's going on everybody? So I have wanted to do this video for I don't know how long, and it's sort of been that thing where it's like, oh man, I should really talk about this, and then I just never get around to doing it, even though I find the topic sort of fascinating, and then on the other hand, I find it very, very tiring because I truly feel like there are people who will just complain to complain, even though logically it makes sense, and it doesn't really take away from the story. So I don't know, it seems like it would just make sense. So yeah, we're going to talk about midichlorians, and for those of you who don't know what midichlorians are, it's basically the life force of everything, and I am probably not explaining that too well, so it's kind of like this aura of just everything. Everything has midichlorians, but when a human or a alien has a overabundance of midichlorians, they are able to manipulate other objects, other people with said midichlorians using the Force. So by adding midichlorians, essentially what could happen is you would have a Jedi that could have offspring that would have a high midichlorian count, which could also be a Jedi or maybe turn into a Sith or whatever. And for whatever reason, people thought that that whole thing was just unnecessary. It broke Star Wars. It makes no sense. And they were under the illusion that anyone could be a Jedi. And I'm sorry, but that really doesn't make any sense when we already established that you had to be essentially you had to be a part of a bloodline to have the midichlorian count. So let's think about this, right? We have Darth Vader, Padme, who is not a Force user, get together, they have sex, and they have twin babies, Luke and Leia. Luke and Leia are both Force sensitive. So the midichlorians were obviously passed down or whatever. So why is Han Solo not a Jedi? If, according to these people, anyone could be a Jedi. Like, that makes no sense. So Han Solo isn't a Jedi. Most of the characters in Star Wars aren't Jedi. We could talk about stormtroopers. Oh, hey, everybody could be a Jedi, so, let's make a stormtrooper army that has lightsabers and stuff, and, so on and so forth. Yeah, it doesn't work, because that's not what midichlorians are. And then people could bring up, well, you could clone a Jedi, you could clone a Sith Lord, and then have a clone Sith army that could overwhelm the Jedi or the Rebellion or whatever, and that is true. However, the problem with the Sith is that they have a rule of two, therefore there can only be two. The apprentice and the master. That is it. And the reason for that is the power struggle. So you would literally, let's say you created a 1 million man clone army of Sith Lords. What you would have is, within a day, at least thousands upon thousands of those clone Sith Lords dead, because they're power hungry. They're Sith Lords. They want power, and they have to kill one another to gain said power. To be the most powerful Sith Lord, you have to be the only one, right? But to carry on the Sith legacy, you have to have a apprentice. So, again, the midichlorians make sense. Then, of course, people talk about, well, anyone could be a Jedi, except the Jedi have a rule that you are not allowed to, say, have sex with a woman or a man and create offspring. You are not allowed to fall in love. And there's a very good reason for that, because the more Jedi that are out there, or more Force-sensitive people that are out there, the more likely there will be more Sith Lords or more Sith apprentices. So by containing that number, by controlling that number, you can control essentially the number of Jedi. So if all Jedi follow that line of thought, if they follow that rule, unlike Anakin, then you really won't have to worry about more and more Jedi appearing. In fact, you could say that the Jedi that do appear are purely accidental. They're, you know, hey, here's this Force-sensitive person that just happened to have sex with somebody else. They did not know they were a Jedi or had the power, and here we have a offspring that is Force-sensitive, and, you know, what do you know, the Jedi comes, they take the baby to train them into being a Jedi. You know, it happens. But that doesn't mean everybody is a Jedi. You're still, in a way, a chosen one. Like, you can't choose as a child who hasn't been born yet. You cannot choose your parents. You cannot choose the events that happen in a world that you don't even exist in yet, right? And even then, you can't choose the events. You can't change the course of, you know, 100 planets when you're on one planet and you are 3 years old. You can't change any of that. So the very fact that you have a midichlorian count is already extremely, extremely rare, and essentially every Jedi is a chosen one because it is so rare. But in Anakin's case, something weird happened, and there's theories out there that Darth Plagueis created life, which ultimately became Anakin, and this guy, obviously, you know, whether you follow the Darth Jar Jar theory or whatever, I think it's a good theory, but, you know, Darth Jar Jar has always been around Anakin and has always been a friend to Anakin very, very closely, as well as Palpatine, which is kind of weird, you know, if you follow the Darth Jar Jar theory and basically how Darth Jar Jar is Darth Plagueis. It's all very interesting, but I just lost my train of thought. So, yeah, midichlorians aren't really that bad. It's essentially, hey, we have a way to create more and more Jedi, to manufacture Jedi. However, no matter how you look at it, it's not a good idea. Because if the Jedi try to manufacture more Jedi, there's a higher probability of having Sith Lords, and just the whole idea is very, very bad. It doesn't work, and you don't need a shitload of Jedi, right? You only need what is necessary. And when it comes to the Sith Lords, well, they just don't get along with one another. There can only be two because of the power-hungry nature that Sith have. So they sort of regulate themselves. So yeah, I think that's it for this video. Midichlorians totally make sense in my opinion. I'm sure there's a counter argument out there, but just looking at the Star Wars storyline and understanding that, hey, Darth Vader had midichlorians, Anakin had midichlorians, and he had 2 twin children that just happened to be Force sensitive. Hey, midichlorians make sense, because Han Solo is not Force sensitive as far as we know, even though he is quite lucky. It seems like he does things that are, you know, kind of out there. He's a very, very good pilot, just like Anakin was, and usually Force-sensitive people are good pilots because they have the most insane reflexes ever, so yeah, there's that. Anyways, I think that is it for this video, and I will talk to you guys later.